Hello and welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Philip Ramos. Here we're on another Spotlight series where we're taking an opportunity to highlight today with me Melinda Breckheisen, certified Gallup strengths coach. Super excited to have her here. We've already had an opportunity to interview her once, kind of share her story, but today we're going to be talking about her book, best-selling author, Anchor to Your Strengths. I absolutely love this. This absolutely took personally took my strengths journey to a whole nother level. So we're super excited to have Melinda here with us today to kind of take a deeper dive into this book. Some of the information behind it, and really kind of the why, right? How do people benefit from it? How do people value from it? So let's go and start there, Melinda. So get us started as to tell us a little bit more of the book itself. Like, what was where did it start? What did you see? What was the gap that you're like, ooh, I need to create this?
So I was actually sitting on the couch with some friends talking about our strengths. I'm sure you've had some things like that. That's the problem with strengths coaches. That's what we do. If you want to be friends with us, we're going to talk about your strengths, right? So we were talking about strengths. We were also talking about essential oils and doTERRA. They were business partners with me in doTERRA. And, a lot of people associate essential oils with emotional support, right?
Yes.
I'm going to pull out my wild orange for abundance or happiness or positivity, or lavender for calming, right? We're using them for mood all the time. And it's kind of innate, it's kind of natural. And my brain started spinning where I was like, if we can all know wild orange is for happiness, positivity, right? If we all know that, that's universal truth, then there's got to be oils for our strengths, right? If we can choose an oil for an emotion, then a strength is really just an extension of that.
Oh,
A
I
strength
love that.
is a natural way that we think and feel, right? It's how
Yes.
we're
Yes.
interacting with the world. And we boil it down to a word like woo or positivity, and it means so much more than that, but it is the same thing as wild orange is happiness,
Right.
right? This can be woo and this can be communication. And so it just seemed like a natural progression to step into the world of personal development with our essential oils.
Right. Right.
Um, I think one of the weirdest parts was trying to come up with what to call it. And I'm actually so proud of this because I call it aromatic anchoring, right? We are
Yes.
anchoring two things together aromatically through essential oils. And there's no copyright on it, but I did create it.
I love it. I love it.
Right. And so, like, when I brought that into the world, it had never existed before, right? And now I can Google it and I see other people talking about it and other people using that same phrase for what they're teaching people. And there is an extreme level of pride in knowing that something that's so beneficial and helpful to the world was just a crazy idea of sitting on a couch with some friends, right? Like it's kind of cool to see that evolve that way. And so for me, I think the gap was I had coached so many people on their strengths, and we'd gone through lesson after lesson, right? And I'm thinking we're making all this progress, and then 6 weeks into it, they're like, "I just don't know what to do."
Right.
Right? They're like, "How do I actually use my strengths? Like, what am I actually doing on a daily basis? What is the process? What does it look like to actually do your strengths?" And so that was the gap I was trying to fill was
Mhm.
how can I make people think about their strengths before they take action? How can I
Yeah.
make them be preemptive and take that minute and say, I'm about to go do a thing. What's going to serve me best? Right? Like that was the
Yes.
moment I was trying to create for people. And I knew they understood oils already because I
Yep.
was in that world, right? So it's like if I can teach them to pull out an oil and think, I'm going to use this strength, then they're naturally, instinctually, chemically going to be at their very best in that next moment.
For
Right.
sure.
It's just that preemptive moment. So I think that's the gap I was trying to fill was if I can teach them that, their brain is going to think every day, I have to do this thing. I'm going to use this strength. I got to pull out this oil. Right. It becomes a habit and a way of thinking. So they're always thinking, what strength am I going to use to accomplish this next thing? And that's what I wanted them to do.
I love it. So when we think about, you mentioned the word, you mentioned the term, right? aromatic anchoring. And I think that we can all kind of draw conclusions as to aromatic, right? We're using the sense of smell, aromatic, right? So let's break that up a bit, because this was something I learned reading your book, that even though you hear the term a lot, right, you don't know, you don't really know what it means. So let's talk about anchoring, because here you are using, right, aromatic, you created this term, now other people are using it. Talk about what is anchoring, and why is it so beneficial? Why does it allow me to, right, do that thing that you're talking about, do that thing in my strength? So break that down a bit.
Well, it was interesting when I was researching that part because I was researching a lot of different types of anchoring, right? People will do EFT, they'll do tapping, people will have affirmation statements. I think one of the most obvious signs of anchoring that universally we can see throughout the world is actually professional athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can think of like Shohei Ohtani, you can think of all of these, and you know exactly how they're going to stand on the plate before they hit the ball. Like
Mm-hmm.
every batter has their own stance and their own little pre-swing movement or stance. Sometimes you'll see them muttering words, right? They're doing the same thing over and over and over because they have trained their body and mind that when we do this, then this is what happens next, right? And you'll see it all the time, even with Steph Curry chewing on his teeth guard. I don't know how he's protecting his teeth if he's chewing on it, right? But
So
he's
true.
created this habit
Yeah.
that puts him in some mode. Right. So we see it all the times with athletes. A lot of motivational speakers, right? They'll teach you about your power stance, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is how I stand. This is how my shoulders are. This is how I'm projecting my voice. I am channeling something so I can project something into the world, right? And so there's many ways, even in therapy. A lot of times you'll go into a therapy session. Here's your blanket. Here's your teddy bear to cuddle. Here's whatever it is. They're creating a habit so that your body says, I'm safe. We can now open and explore right throughout the session. These are all anchoring. We are creating a habit, something physical that connects to our memory and brain that says, okay, I know what happens next.
Right. Right.
With the sense of smell, it is actually the one of the most sophisticated, complicated things that our brains can do. We can decipher over 1 trillion different scents. And many of them we don't even recognize, but some of them are obvious. We get milk out of the fridge. We open it up, we take a sniff. We now know if we should drink it or not,
Right.
right? Because our instinct has said certain smells are dangerous, certain smells are safe. Even when we step outside and we smell smoke, if it smells like hot dogs, we don't panic. If it smells like chemical, we might look around to see if something's on fire that shouldn't be on fire,
Yeah.
right? Even the different types of smoke we smell tell us how to react to it.
Yeah.
And it happens for our survival, right? A lot of it's instinctual. And then it also happens with memory association. For example, you might be walking through a public space and smell someone's cologne and say, oh, that reminds me of my grandpa. He always used to smell like Old Spice and cigars. Right.
Yeah.
And you just have this core memory. Or you walk into someone's home and oh, this reminds me when I was 8 years old and my mom brought me in the kitchen and taught me how to make apple pie. And we're imagining ourselves as 8 year old. We might even be able to picture what we were wearing that day
Right.
when I
Right.
learned to make apple pie, right? Like the memory is so vivid. And it was an instant smell that connected you to that memory.
Right.
And you didn't intentionally at 8 years old, I'm going to remember this smell forever and this is a core memory. No, it just happened, right? It just happened. So with this, with aromatic anchoring, instead of it just happening, we're being intentional. We're
Yeah.
creating that memory
Yes.
on purpose so we can use it as a tool later.
Yeah. Yeah, after I read your book, I really dove into this idea of anchoring. I was like, wow, this is fascinating. You mentioned, right, EFT tapping. You mentioned, affirmations. I know vision boards, right, what we see visually. And from what I understood, it's anything that's going to create a state change, right, where we want to go from one state of mind or emotion to another state of mind or emotion. So these, whether it's the ball player, whether if it's, no matter what we're doing, that trigger or that thing that we do creates a new state change. And when I started reading more about, this idea of aromatic anchoring, right, the power of smell, fascinating the way it absolutely, impacts, the emotional brain, right? And I was like, whoa, this is mind blowing. So I love that, you were able to, see that, okay, people are struggling with the how, right? And connecting that dot. And now into aromatic, and so if talk to me a little bit about why. So when we talk about anchoring, and again, state changes, that emotional connection, how powerful is that when it comes time to us trying to use whether these oils or we're feeling a certain way. And we already know these, you mentioned this at the very beginning, oils create that, impact our emotions. But how does that work and how powerful really is that?
I think, I mean, on a scientific level, it's because essential oils can pass the blood-brain barrier,
Mm,
right? Like it has the ability to connect to the limbic brain and create something,
yeah,
right? To actually create change within our brain. Um, like on a more emotional level, I think it's so powerful because I mean, we've all had this happen to us at one point or another where we're in a bad mood or we're sad and someone's just like, snap out of it. Or don't be sad, be happy, and they just want you to just change. And part of you wants to just change,
yeah,
but you can't because you're stuck in a rhythm, you're stuck in that feeling, and you don't know how to get yourself out of it.
yeah,
And I think that is the unique power of aromatherapy is because it actually changes your brain chemistry to assist you in moving forward. Right? That is powerful because I want to be happy. How
yes,
can I get to happiness? Well, I'm smelling something that actually helps my brain produce GABA,
yes,
right? Like it's an
yes,
actual physical thing assisting me as a powerful tool to get me where I want to go. So we have the science to back up the claim. It's not just the power of positive thinking. It's like actually we're changing our chemistry to help us get unstuck and move where we want to go.
yeah. I love that you use the word chemistry because that's what's going on, right? When we smell these things, we start, our limbic brain, like things start firing, things start happening. And that's powerful. That's extremely powerful. So now that we have a little bit of understanding in terms of anchoring, right? Anchoring, aromatic there, anchoring specifically. Now moving into the book itself, what are some of the things as as you started writing the book, you're taking through the journey, what are some of the things that you put in there that you felt like were so important for people to realize? Because I know for me, right, I learned a lot about anchoring in itself, but then I started seeing specific strengths with specific oils. So talk a little bit about that, and how does that work? How did you come about that?
Yeah, so the book is formatted. Let me just open to a random page. Um, so this is consistency, and this right here is the actual Gallup short definition of consistency. This was licensed. I got it licensed from Gallup. So it's there, especially if you're newer to strengths and you need that reminder,
Yes.
right? Read this to get you in the zone of what you're trying to bring out in yourself when you use that strength. Then on this side, there are three recommendations for oils to anchor. I actually researched for 10 months, reading hundreds of scientific studies, talking to chemists, talking to other people. This was not, ooh, let's just pick and choose, right? Like
Right.
I tried to look on the most chemically accurate level, which essential oil will best support that state of mind, right? So the number one strength on the list is the one that I've chosen through research to be the best match. However, sometimes you don't have that oil, or sometimes you hate that oil, or
Yeah.
sometimes you've already anchored it to something else. So there are two alternatives. There's a second and a third oil that are alternatives. It's not second best and third best. It's just two other options if for some reason you don't like the first one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the number one is the real one. The other ones are solid answers that you can use as alternatives.
Mm.
Then at the bottom is a counterbalance oil. And this is kind of the opposite, right? So if it is something that is making you super expressive and communicative, and actually it's time to listen, right? What is an oil that can support listening in that moment? So it's the counterbalance oil when maybe something has gone into overdrive, it's overpowering, overwhelming, and no longer serving you. And you need to kind of say, it's your turn in the back seat. We're going to put someone else up there to drive, right? Let's tone it down. We never want to scold our strengths, but sometimes we need to put them in their proper position in that given moment. And so there is a counterbalance oil as well. And so it goes through all 34 strengths, gives suggestions for all 34 of them. And then it goes through the actual training of how do I anchor an oil to a strength? What does that look like? How do I practice that? So the training is all in there. And then there is a quick guide in the back that is a chart. Let me see if I can find it. So there's just a quick chart if you need to look it up super fast. And there's also a space for you to write your top five, right? There's some places for notes. And then there are some recipes, which are combining the different oils to create a perfume, a cologne, whatever you want to use, that combine some of those strengths to help you align yourself with the best version, right? Like, who do I need to be in this moment? I'm going to put these oils on. And instead of having to anchor to each one of them, you've got that blend ready to go, right? So, tools to help you decide who you want to be.
Mm. I like that. Tools to help you decide who you want to be. Now, when you mentioned also anchoring, right? You also mentioned how sometimes we're anchored, the counterbalance, right? We need to like, okay, put this theme in the back seat, right? Put this string in the back seat. We need to put some other scrolls because we could be anchored to something negatively, right? Like let's say, where we see something and a negative emotion come out, or we experience something that over and over again, we experience those negative emotions. And so I can see why the value of counterbalancing. I can see also the value of, I want to make sure I really bring this one to light, or
Right.
this one to light. And so, going through your book, I'll be honest with you, I absolutely loved it. I've read it so many times, mainly because, and that's me, right? I don't have high learner, I don't have high input, so I gotta read things over and over or listen to books over and over again to make sure I'm like, okay, did I get it all? Did I get it all? Right? And that really helpful for me. But when you talk about, near the book, I want to spend just a little more time. You created these blends in the back of the book, and I remember my wife, when she first met you, she told you about, how, I create a blend. So my blend, if you look in the back of the book, is social speed. I got my social speed, and I've recreated, this is like a little kind of perfume bottle my wife bought me. It has like a little dropper, but it has the social speed blend in there. And I remember the first time I experienced it, I felt like, oh man, this is everything I meant to be, right? Everything started to lighten up. But at the same time, there was also times when I'm like, oh, I got to slow this down, right? Because social speed. And so I could see the value of making sure that there's times when I need to be this person, and then there's times I need to, dial it back. For example, if I'm taking my wife out, and it's our anniversary, and we're going out to just her and I time, social speed is not what I need in that moment. I don't need to be social with everybody around me. I need to spend more time relating, connecting with my wife. And so I've learned how to identify what I need, versus what I don't need, within your book. So as we look at some of those combinations, what are, when you created those, what are some other experiences you've had with them? What have you seen with them? How can people really, connect with some of those things in order to basically take full advantage of what you have in there? Can people create their own, blends? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, definitely you can create your own. With these ones, I did try to follow the rules of essential oil blending, right? With top notes and middle notes and all of that. Like I did try my best to number one, follow the rules, and number two, make them smell good.
Yes, yes.
So I did try. But absolutely you can make your own and figure out like which of my strengths do I really want to focus on and let shine.
Mhm.
Um, for me, I don't necessarily need to encourage my harmony.
Mm,
because it shows up 24/7, no matter what, all the
sure.
time. It is so strong, right? I don't necessarily need to encourage that. Sometimes I really need to encourage speaking up
Mm.
and actually using my voice and being willing to offend someone or hurt their feelings. It's
Which is
really
which is
hard.
contradictive to harmony, right?
Which is the exact opposite of harmony, right? But sometimes I have to. Sometimes
Yeah,
I have to stand up for myself and sometimes tell people things they don't want to hear.
right.
And so that's kind of those blends that I are drawn to, like
Mm,
the other parts of me that need to come forward to balance me out and make me more effective and successful. So those tend to be the blends that I gravitate towards, the ones where I need the extra support, not the ones that I'm already doing naturally and wonderfully. Um,
mm.
so, but again, that's very personal. That's not a right or wrong thing. It's
Yeah.
just what I gravitate towards. It was interesting because, like, I don't know if you and I would have created a podcast together if I hadn't learned you were making social speed at home. Like, it's crazy. I don't even have connectedness very high, but looking at the chain of events, like, it's kind of crazy because a lot of people come back to me and they say, I love your book. It really helps me connect with my strengths. This was 2017,
Mhm.
and you were the first person this entire time who said, I use this blend, I love it. The first time in my whole life where I actually got that feedback where I was like, I didn't do it for nothing. Like this is amazing. Someone's using, and I've done workshops where people, like I've had my team come together, we all make the blends together and they go home, but I never actually got feedback from them if
Sure.
they liked the blends or how it worked, right? Like I know
Yeah.
people made them, but you were the first person where I actually got that feedback that it actually supported and helped you in some way. So thank you. And maybe you should answer that question. Like because you are now my one person test subject.
Oh man, that's great. Well, one of the things that I think that, and again, going back to I think you did such a phenomenal job in the book. For someone that again, I don't have high learner, high input. And sometimes we look at books, right, that are this thick, and we look at information, psychology, data, all these different things. And sometimes it could be very difficult to wrap your brain around new ideas and new concepts. What I really loved about your book, when you started introducing just the idea of anchoring, and you talked about the story of Pavlov's dogs and how that worked, and then you started incorporating, what it looks like. You simplified the information that my brain, right, could be like, wow. And I actually teach, and I teach a class in every strengths program. There isn't a single strengths program I've ever done that does not include anchor to your strengths in some way, shape, or form. Because I've learned, the power of anchoring, of course, and I teach vision boards, declarations, tapping. I do all of those with strengths. But when you, again, going back to the aromatic, to leave that portion out, and I really honestly think that, and so I'm so excited for this interview because I really don't think that people have connected the dots as to when we look at trying to change our emotional state, right? We look at, I want to incorporate more positivity, or I want to, tone down my harmony, or I want to bring maybe a strength above that harmony. And this is what I need right now. And the magic that you have with essential oils, it really is like I don't know any other word but to use magic, because what happens, the chemistry, your brain, the things that get lit up. So the power that you have with the oils, with the blends, it really it can move you so quickly, so quick, that us on our own, I have positivity at number one. And as good as I am at shifting my whatever mood or energy, I still can't do it nearly as fast enough as I can with essential oils, right? Because of how it impacts, again, going back to the chemistry, how it impacts my brain. I'm now working with things that I don't necessarily have, like, enough brain space to, force it, but I'm working with that chemistry. So I've learned so much, and that's what really drew me to, just to you in general, and why I kept reading it, and even strengths. Like I was like fascinated with this idea that we could anchor, uh, touch, get in tune with these things about ourselves, and we could do it on purpose, right? Because going back to what you originally talked about, what the gap was, or why you're creating the book, or why you're putting it out there, is that we do find a lot of people as strengths coaches, taking people on this journey, that how do I do it? That, how do I incorporate it? How do I bring it to life? How do I manifest it? That's a common problem. It really is. It's a common thing. And I'll just be honest, I have found the information, and really the aromatic, information you put in here and the blends to really be that catapult, right? That fire starter, that thing to put me there without, in a way that I couldn't force myself to. Does that make sense? And I
Yeah.
experienced that from your book. So for me, that became so real. That became real.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things that made it so easy to write the book is that fundamentally essential oils and strengths are doing the same thing for people.
Right.
They, you know, we often talk about how essential oils are helping our body be restored to homeostasis. Like how can it get back into that healthy wellness space? And both essential oils and strengths are helping us become the healthiest holistic version of ourselves, right? Like
Ooh,
this, right? Essential oils don't heal you. They
yes.
help your body heal you. Strengths don't change you. They help you with what you already have and who you already are, right? Like both of these things are enhancing and bringing to light
Yes.
the elevated version of yourself, right? Like they really are partners and tools to being able to present the version of ourselves who I think we would like to present to the
Sure.
world.
Sure. No, that's wonderful. That's so awesome. I love the way you said that, because that's true, right? Our strengths are these things that we have inside us, right? The oils aren't necessarily, they're not bringing out something that doesn't exist inside of us. It amplifies, right? It
Yeah.
amplifies these strengths. It amplifies our health journey. It amplifies all these things. And I love the way you say that. That's awesome. That's incredible. So when, with the book and going on the journey, in taking people through the understanding of anchoring, now identifying their strengths, their oils, creating their blend. What have you found? Because obviously you've done, maybe some different book signings. You've talked to people. What do you feel? Because I always get fascinated, with what have you found, maybe with, we talk about all the great things that people can learn from the book. What do you think keeps people from really diving into that? Maybe someone can be like, ooh, I want to be aware of that, so when I do get this book, I can really get in, or I can. What do you think? What would be the biggest piece of advice when someone's starting their strengths journey or anchoring journey, where maybe people get stuck, that you can help them overcome some of that?
I think that one of the biggest problems I've seen is that people do things on autopilot
Mm,
and then spend all of their time stewing over it after the fact,
mm,
right? They go through life and then maybe it didn't work out so well. And now they're obsessing and picking it apart and being like, I should have done this. I should have done that. What's wrong with me here? This is, and all of the thinking is after it's already over. Right. And so what we want to do is flip that around and actually let's put your thoughts and emotion and energy into even 30 seconds ahead of time.
yes.
This isn't something where now I've got to spend an hour before every time I do something and go through this whole sequence and it's a new burdensome thing I have to add into my life. No, it's actually 10 seconds of I'm going to have a conversation. What strength helps me communicate with people? Harmony, because we find the common ground. Pull out the oil, bam. Right? That took me what, 3 seconds to say that. Right? Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be this arduous, long process. It literally is just, 1 minute max where you are contemplating and getting intentional, right? If I can offer any advice, it's just take the minute to be intentional ahead of time so that when you go do the thing, you're in a different mind space, you act differently, you perform differently, and odds are you're going to have 6 times the success. right? Because statistically speaking, Gallup has shown when you use your strengths in your activities, you are going to be more successful. You are going to be more satisfied with your
Yeah.
results. You're going to feel better about yourself,
Yeah.
right? By using your strengths. And it doesn't take that much effort other than the initial understanding your strengths. That does take some effort.
Sure.
But the actual anchoring, not so bad. Just do it.
Yeah. I think that's probably the biggest thing that I found also is that, and maybe it's people's, caution with oils or caution with they read about anchoring and they get hesitant. But when you think about, how many people do affirmations and declarations and vision boards, tapping, and these routines, and I've incorporated a lot of routines in my life, and believe me, I don't have, I'm not, that's not easy for me, right? That's a difficult one for me for sure. Is this, I don't have discipline, no consistency. I don't have none of that. And so for me to incorporate new routines, that makes it difficult. But there isn't a single thing that I've incorporated in my life that has been easier than, knowing what, okay, I want to shift into this. These are the oils I need. Let's do it, right? Let's do it. And so that has been, and I think again, my experience is, we overcomplicate something that's so powerful, something that's so useful, something that can be very much in the moment, whether if it's a rollerball, right? For when I first started, I had a social speed, what is it, the rollerball, the touch kind of,
Mhm.
and I used to bring it out and I just, okay, go and boom, and here we go, right? And that's how I started. And now, I do a lot of Zooms, a lot of little things, and so I always have it at my desk. But that's how I began, and maybe because I don't complicate really a whole lot. That's my activator. If I see something, I'm like, okay, let's do it. Oops, I made a mistake, right? We'll figure it out later on. But that's I guess that's maybe one of my great things is I don't stew. I don't complicate. And so when I read your book and I read this information, I'm like, ooh, this oil will do this. Yes, let's do it, right? It
Right.
made it seemed simpler to me. And I think that if people can get past the complication, if they can get past the complexity of aromatic, if they can get past the complexity of the chemistry and maybe even their strength and get into like, you know what, I want to do more of this, I want to feel this is the oil for this, let's do it, right? And get into that space where they can just take more action. I think people would experience so many more phenomenal, just just great results. Again, going back to that state change of what the aromatic process can do for them.
I think that's super true. And I love that you bring up the simplicity of it. Like a good example of that is I always use cardamom before I do any public speaking.
Mm.
It started off because I used to have a chronic cough, and it was actually just to calm down my cough.
Oh,
But as luck would have it, I naturally anchored to it,
yeah.
right? And because when I put the cardamom on, it gave me the confidence that I knew I wouldn't cough on stage.
Oh,
And so I walked onto stage feeling confident and calm, like I was going to be able to do what I was supposed to do. And now I put that cardamom on, and I do not give myself a 2-minute speech. You're going to go out there, you're going to be amazing, you're going to have a strong, clear voice. I'm doing none of that, right? I don't do any of that. I put the oil on and I go on stage
yeah.
because I have confidence that that's what the oil is going to do.
Right, right.
Right. So even if you haven't gone through the whole process of anchoring and creating memory and doing all of that, just look in the book. Myrrh is for empathy. Put some myrrh on and go be empathetic, right? Like, just go do it.
Yeah, I
Because
love it.
guess what? If you put it on and then you go do it, you're actually anchoring in the moment.
I love it.
You're creating a memory in the moment.
I
So
love
we don't have to complicate it. We can just do it because the chemistry's literally on our side.
I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So, with someone again starting out their strengths journey, maybe starting out, maybe they're new to, or maybe they're new to oils, they're cautious with oils. What would you say the biggest recommendation, obviously besides getting the book, what would be the biggest recommendation in their strengths, in their anchoring journey? What does that look like so that someone new can be confident, kind of, get to the point where they can be that confident with the process?
I would say first and foremost, look at least your top five, probably your top 10, but at least your top five, and get to this space where if someone says, "Oh, you have a developer, what's that?" And you could actually answer that question. Right? Like get comfortable with your top five so you actually know what they are and what they do for you.
Yes.
And then look at them and be like, which one is serving me the best right now in my life and the things I need to do on a daily basis?
Yeah.
Just pick one strength and then look it up in the book and pick one oil and just practice with that oil for like 2 weeks. Just focus on that one strength and that one oil. How am I going to use developer today? Wake up the next day. How am I going to use developer today? Right? And keep doing it just with one oil and one strength till you can actually pull out that oil and you're going into that coaching, cheerleader, mentor mode where you're supporting someone else naturally. And
Yes.
then move on to something else. But just pick one, right? Keep it simple. One strength, one oil, 2 weeks.
Yeah, I love it. No, that's great. Keep it simple, making sure that and I think that's another thing is people don't take the time just to read over, right? Just what is developer, how does it work, that sort of thing. How is it unique to you, right? You read that pages 3, 5, 7, 9, get that information so you know what that looks like for you. Now, once they do that, right, they're like, okay, now I need to move forward. Where do they find the book? Like, where can they go about? Where they're like, okay, I'm sold. Melinda and Philip are like telling me I got to get this. Where can they find the book?
A few different places. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it from Aroma Tools. You can get it from essentialoilsupplies.co.uk. I know there's a retailer in Canada and Australia as well, so that you can save on shipping, right? So there's some there as well. I did also create a mini version of the book. So the book has all of the definitions of all the strengths.
Yes.
If you already know all those definitions, you don't need them again, right? So this is the Anchor to Your Strengths brochure,
Mm-hmm.
which is just the aromatic anchoring sequence, how to do it with the chart, right? Like, so this is good if you just need the guide. And that's same places, right? Aroma Tools, essentialoilsupplies.co.uk. So they're around, they're out and about.
They're out and about. And I love that quick reference guide. That's really good for, get the book. If you don't understand, if we're talking about anchoring, or if you want to understand it, again, I've absolutely loved the way she described in the book. Absolutely love the way you just took me through it. I'm like, oh, I get this. This makes sense to me, And so I just think that we're more confident in doing things when it makes sense to our brain, right? When it makes sense
Yeah.
to our process. So definitely get the full book so that, I definitely recommend. You're going to learn a ton. You're going to enjoy, you'll see the blends in there, but try the blends in the back. I love them. Find the one that works for you. And then do me a favor and email us and let us know, Melinda, I tried this blend. I mean, wouldn't that be great? So let's do that. We
Oh
should
man, I would
we
just
should do
cry,
that.
cry, cry.
Yeah, we should do that. We need to get more emails. So email us at thestrengthstudio@gmail.com so we can get of all the different blends that you've tried in the back. And I think it'd just be wonderful to like see, what's working for you. How does that work? Because I think that's, and again, I would have to say, right, if Melinda and I never had a chance to interact, she would have never had an opportunity to hear how awesome this stuff is because and how much I've learned. So Melinda, I thank you so much for taking the time to break down your book. Thank you so much for time for sharing this information, taking the time to write it. And I think that's the thing is that I want you to know how much it's meant to me, and how much it's helped me on my strengths journey. I would and I truly I would not be here. I found this before I got certified. I found this before I even became a coach, before I became a coach, before I got certified. I found this before I even, talked to my first person about strengths, because this really helped me understand not just, again, aromatic anchoring, but really strengths and what you talked about, they are who we are, and how we bring the best versions of ourselves. And so I learned so much. So I want to thank you personally, because it's done wonders for me. It really has. And then of course the blends and everything that have come from that. So as we wrap this up, is there anything that you'd like to, just one last thing you'd like to share as we bring this to a close? Anything that you want to share with the audience, the viewership, people that are watching it, either where they're going to watch it today or they're going to watch it in 10 years from now? What would you like to leave with them?
I think, like if I think about when I go on stage and speak, right? Like it's a 45-minute presentation. I'm going to do it either way. I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes of my life on that stage. Why not give myself the best chance to do the best job, to influence more people, to support more people, to do something that I am proud of that I've accomplished, right? If I'm going to go through all the work anyway, why not give myself that edge up? Right? That's what this book is doing for you. You're going to do the work anyway. You exist, you're going to live every day of your life, right? Give yourself that edge up and see what results come from that.
I love
That's
that.
my final thought.
I love that. And I can tell you it's definitely edged me up, right? I've experienced that promise is true. I'm a great example of the 6 times promise that Gallup has. And I'm a great example of what anchoring, and so I want to invite anyone watching this, whether if you're today watching this 10 years from now, take full advantage, number one, of your strengths report. Second thing, take full advantage of anchoring and the aromatic process. Learn about, if you don't have any, if you're not familiar with oils, reach out, find out more about oils because they're incredibly powerful and how they allow us to anchor or influence or work with our chemistry. I love the way you said that. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you so much, Melinda. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for joining again on another episode on here on the Spotlight series. If you have any questions, please feel free to email us at the strengthstudio@gmail.com. If you're just starting your strengths journey and you want to know, we have a worksheet that we send out, how the 10 top things to do now that you have your strengths report. We also have a newsletter that we put out. So please join us, email us, continue to watch our YouTube channel for more and more content, more and more deeper dives into the individual strengths, the individual themes. Thank you so much for being here, and we love you and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.